Well, this is a pleasure to have Maestro Steven Isserlis today with me to talk a little bit about music, about his career. And this is a fine opportunity because, as you know, Steven is going to have his debut concerts in Mexico at León, Guanajuato, and later at Monterrey, Nuevo León. And for us, it is really an important event of the year because now we have a foremost cellist master on top of his ability, artistical, intellectual. But the first thing, Maestro, is, as far as I know, Mexico has never came through your path.
No,
Mm-hmm.
never been to Central America, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, I mean, it's North America, isn't it? Mexico.
Yes.
But I've been to that part of North America or Central America. I've been to South America a few times, but not that often. But yeah, Mexico, I've always wanted to come because I love the food and I love margaritas.
Well, Mexico, as any product of Western ideas and culture, because America, after all, is a variant of all of that. We have also a tradition of classical music, concert music, church music, and during the 20th century, we got and over the 21st century also many main artists. And I recall, for example, Pau Casals. That's a great name that I know you also respect very much. But what do you think of all those masters that were also great travelers? It's interesting, this idea of meeting cultures, no? But sometimes those cultures perhaps are not so far away, or I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough Mexican music at all. Casals actually had a house in Mexico, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a house built for him in Mexico. He hardly went there,
Yes.
But yeah, he did have that house. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just like traveling. I just had a wonderful time at the end of last year in China. I was there for about 2 weeks. It was great, and the audiences there are wonderful. So yeah, I'm just interested in going to new places. The trouble is that I see very little because I'm practicing and eating, and but at least with audiences, you get a sense of places and people.
What do you think about classical music, or if you want concert music, Western music, whatever the name? But do you think the audience are getting smaller? That's a thing that I have.
I don't think so. I find anything getting bigger. I mean, depends where you go. I mean, China is a huge success story, of course, for classical music. I went a few years ago.
Japan also.
Yeah, Japan has been for many years. China is new. China is great. I mean, I went a few years ago, and I can't say I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the audiences. They didn't seem to be that interested. Now, I mean, there's so many young people in the audience. It was the nearest I've got to playing pop concerts. I mean, it really felt like that. Well, for half my trip, I was with Martha Argerich and others. So, of course, she's very famous there as well, everywhere. But I mean, the audiences were just wonderful. They were so enthusiastic, and they were so, sort of, they would turn up at sort of the hotel asking for autographs and queuing, crowds of them queuing up when we went out through the artist entrance at the end. And yeah, as I said, since I've got to playing pop concerts, and Connie Shi and I, with whom I'm coming to Mexico, of course, we played recital in Taipei, and they said it was sold out, so I assumed it was must be a small hall. No, it was the big concert hall, 2,200, completely sold out. And they're thirsty for music there. So I'm hoping it'll be the same in Mexico.
Let's talk a little bit about the cello. How it came to you, the instrument. I know that you are from a musical family. your grandfather Julius Isserlis, an important musician that came from the East, lived in Kiev. If I'm correct, if I
Yes, sir.
yes, and then I think in a musical family, it's more or less easy to pass on this type of baton, if you want to.
Yeah,
Like
it's true. And I have two sisters. One is violist, one is violinist. So in the family, we needed a cellist. That's why I played the cello.
Okay, for the ensemble.
Exactly.
And later, but then there's a moment where it picks up, no? It picks up steam. It's going professional, no? Music, perhaps at the beginning, perhaps it's a thing of delight, of playing.
It still is a thing of delight.
Yes.
Thing that gives most pleasure, probably, is music.
Yes.
Even more than food. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I was always pretty serious. I think probably I decided to make it my profession when I realized I wasn't any good at anything else. That was quite.
That sounds funny because you are great with your instrument, with your art, but we all are good for something. I assume.
Anyway, but that's what I was most interested in. Oh, and writing, of course. I love to write.
At what age did you think I want to be a cellist? This is
maybe it. I was about 12, probably 11, 12.
And those were the days where you studied with Jane Cowan.
That's right. Jane Cowan was my teacher from the age of 10. Probably once I went to her, my path was pretty set. She taught me from I was 10 when I went to her and 17 when I left, but I still would go back for lessons after that. She was a great teacher. Not a famous teacher, but a great teacher.
What about your days at Oberlin Conservatoire?
Yeah, Oberlin Conservatoire. Well, those were very nice. They were very good socially and musically. They were nice. I mean, so I had a very good teacher there, Kapuscinski, who sort of brought me down to earth a little bit after Jane Cowan. But Jane was my main teacher.
Is it a difference, in your opinion, about the cello teaching in UK, for example, and United States, or more or less?
Very different, especially then. There was a real tradition in Britain which was very separate from the tradition in the States. The States was much more, as I say, my teacher Kapuscinski was very practical, and that was good for me because I needed to be practical. I was such a dreamer with Jane. Well, I'm still sort of a dreamer, but I needed to be shown what the music world would be like, and he did that.
Where does it come, your interest in literature, and what do you think about the links between literature and music?
It's pleasure, but music's also pleasure. You know, the two things I love most, almost in life, are listening to music and reading. Those are my favorite hobbies, if you like. I don't know if there is. I mean, certainly, I think big connection between theatre and music, that we musicians are actors in that we have to become the characters portraying. There's some links, but
I love this idea of you about the musician as a character. In a sense, you have to do something also with the scenario, although music is the main important element. But sometimes you see so much restrained artists that perhaps need a little bit of spark. Yes, I know I can't generalize in that regard, but I have also read about some of your thoughts regarding sincerity and music. And what's a sincere musician, in your opinion?
A sincere musician is somebody who plays from inside, not outside. Unfortunately, I think there are many musicians who play from outside who are more interested in the audience reaction, and composers who compose from outside too. I'm not mentioning any names, but I heard a piece or some of a piece last night, and I thought, this is just about the audience. It's not about expressing anything. And and one mustn't think too much about the audience. One must think what the music means, and I would rather draw an audience in. I'd rather move an audience than impress them. I don't mind impressing them. I'm glad if they're impressed, but more important to move them, to bring them into the world of the composer. And in sincerity, we'll say in cello playing, that means you vibrate when it means something. You don't do a constant vibrato. You do constant, glissandi, sliding between one note and another just because it's comfortable or because you think it'll sound expressive. You only do it if your heart tells you to do it. Yeah. So sincerity and even the fancies you make, I can tell. I had a great friend who sadly died at the age of 51. It's terrible. Lars Vogt, the pianist. And he used to say,
"Oh yes, great pianist." Yes.
Yeah, I'm just a great person, wonderful person. And he said that some musicians, when they come on stage, by the time they reach the center of the platform, he was already bored because this is how it's going to be. No, how it's going to be. We want to see you go on a journey, a new journey every time.
Regarding technique and performance of the cello, you come from a great generation, I have to say, of British musicians. And in a sense, your generation marked a little bit this change about historical period informed. I know that there is a previous generation like Harnoncourt and all of them, but you have Trevor Pinnock, you have Christopher Hogwood, perhaps a little bit older than you, of course, but from that amount of music.
Influencing my generation,
yes.
John Elliott Gardner, of course,
John Elliott.
Roger Norrington, whose 90th birthday is today, the day we're meeting.
Great.
People like that. Yeah, well, my sisters play probably more original especially my elder sister, Annette. She plays exclusively on original, on classical and Baroque viola, rather than modern, almost exclusively. And my middle sister, Rachel, she probably 50-50 modern and classical Baroque violin. So I'm very involved. They're both members of the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, with whom I perform quite regularly. In fact, I just recorded with them. So yeah,
has it been an influence on your playing?
Huge influence. But Jane Cowan was an influence on many of them. She introduced the music of Schein and Schütz and Monteverdi and things. I mean, she was a big influence on the early music world, but then she sort of turned against most of the early instrument players because she felt they played so badly, which they did at first. And now, of course, the two worlds, the modern and the original instrument, have come much closer. And yeah, I'm sort of in the middle in a way. I played many times. I did the Beethoven cycle with Robert Levin on forte piano. We recorded it together, and I recorded Bach gamba sonatas with harpsichord, Richard Egar. And so I'm very influenced by that world. And I recorded Haydn concertos the first time with Roger Norrington, second time with the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie, which is almost an original instrument ensemble, even though they play modern instruments. So I'm sort of in the middle that well. I mean, here where I am at the moment in Wisconsin, I'm playing Kabalevsky Concerto No. 2, which is very different on playing on steel strings and things. But most of my life, I play Schumann, Haydn, etc. Beethoven on gut strings. I'll be bringing my gut strings to Mexico.
So in a sense, today's musicians are more flexible, don't you think?
I think so, especially in Europe, but elsewhere as well.
The amount of cello music from the repertoire and outside the repertoire is wide. What's your motivation to explore such a great part of it? I know that it is really huge, and you are not going to take it all, but in a sense, it has been your career has been an exploration in a sense.
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, I'm not very good about learning new pieces. I hate learning new things, but I make myself occasionally, but not as often as I should. I'd rather go back to pieces I played before and think about them again. Yeah, we have a great repertoire, cello from Bach onwards. It's a wonderful repertoire. It's not huge. We have 5 Beethoven sonatas where the violin has 10 and piano, of course, has 32. But I wouldn't swap the Beethoven cello sonatas for the violin sonatas, even though there are 10 of them. I think our 5 are a perfect mixture of early to late Beethoven. And same thing, I wouldn't swap the cello suites for the violin sonatas and partitas. I love the cello suites, even though I don't actually perform them these days, but I still love and adore them. And so on. Brahms sonatas I might swap for the violin sonatas. They're even greater, but I love the cello sonatas too. And there's many works. What are we playing when we come to Mexico? We're playing.
You are going to play Arpeggione.
That's a
beautiful piece.
It's not easy. In fact, it's a very hard program I'm bringing to Mexico.
Sonfore, Busoni,
which is it's his first piece for cello and his most popular. I don't say it's his greatest, but I love it. The sonata, greatest. I love the Fauré sonatas. But
Poulenc also.
Poulenc, that's again.
That's a gem. That's not played too much in reality.
I know. Well, it's very, very difficult. In fact, I got to practice it this morning when we're finished talking, because I'm playing it quite soon before I come to the States and Mexico. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. You're right. It's a gem. It's like somebody said, it's like champagne.
Okay. Yes.
And the Bloch pieces from Jewish Life, which are almost my favorite short pieces for cello. They're just glorious, heartbreaking, but so beautiful. In fact, just before Christmas in Berlin, we gave a sort of concert for peace with Palestinian and Israeli peace activists on stage together. Because I played the Bloch prayer. It felt very appropriate.
You have also been a person who believes, a musician who believes in Fauré, in Saint-Saëns, we were talking earlier. What do you see of that music? Today it seems that now you can't evaluate a composer only on the terms of if he was conservative, and it's a little bit. Yes, I also hate those etiquettes. In the case of Saint-Saëns, after all, at the beginning he was a forward-looking musician, but then he went his own path, no? And Fauré is always.
Fauré is actually very forward-looking, but in a subtle way. He's not iconoclastic. He didn't sort of break tradition by any means. He wasn't out to create a new language like Debussy and Ravel were, but he actually did create a new language without making a noise about it. He's incredibly original. He still puzzles some people more than Debussy or Ravel, who've become standard repertoire. But Fauré is completely original. And Saint-Saëns is very original too. I mean, it's not true that he's old-fashioned. If you like the second piano trio of Saint-Saëns, that's remarkable. I mean, it's extraordinary and surreal, some of it. But he's changing, Saint-Saëns. That's the problem. That's why people get sort of underrate him, because they can't pigeonhole him. He changes from piece to piece. But I love both these composers, of course, especially Fauré, who's been not only one of my favorite composers, but also somehow a very important figure in my life. He's been there like a godfather in my life. That just adores me. My son, whom I just mentioned, Gabriel, he's named after Fauré.
But in a sense, he's not a composer for the grand public, no?
I think he should. They don't get to hear him much. I'm doing a lot of Fauré this year because it's the centenary of his death. In fact, in November, we're doing 5 nights of his music consecutively. It's going to be exhausting at the Wigmore, him and his friends at the Wigmore Hall in London. And there's a group of us, Joshua Bell, Ren Duval, and Blythe Engstrom, and Jeremy Denk, and myself, and Connie, of course, Connie. I would Connie into everything I do if I can. Well, not concertos, but everything with piano. So we're doing, between us, we're doing all the chamber music of Fauré and and pieces, I say,
Wonderful.
by friends as well. I think in Britain, we got quite a tradition of loving both chansons and forêt. I think they were more appreciated in their lifetimes in Britain than they were in France, and goes on tradition.
Well, that's really nice. They deserved it, in my opinion.
I mean, I think Fauré is one of the greatest composers who ever lived. I mean, not for orchestral music. He didn't write much, and he didn't like orchestrating. But for chamber music, songs, choral music, incredible. And piano music.
Finally, what do you expect about this first visit to Mexico that we hope?
Well, I'm sorry it's so brief.
Goes.
We haven't really got time to look around, as always. So, rushing from San Francisco and rushing back to Los Angeles, and that's unfortunately how our life tends to be. But I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how it is. Yeah, we'll just hope that everything works out practically, because I know we got some difficult travel days. But I'm very much looking forward to it. And as I say, especially the food and the margaritas.
Well, there should be plenty of it.
Good.
Thank you very much for this
Pleasure.
chat. Thank you.